Hello, hello. Welcome back to chapter 20X. The reason for the break between last chapter and this one is that I could not, for the life of me, figure out the first 3 turns of this chapter. Looking at the map and what's available itself, it doesn't seem like this chapter would be too challenging. But then you actually play it and you realize, hold on, there's some really annoying features that this map has. The most annoying features would be that A, your starting groups are split into 3. So on most maps you would spawn with all of your units together, or at the very most, maybe in 2 separate parties. But on this map, you get 3 groups, 3 separate groups of units that are all quite small. And they are very separate. It's not like, oh, they spawn, you know, one's the bottom left, one's bottom right. They've got an entire map between them, basically. The closest groups are the top right and top left. And so I discovered pretty quickly that it's in my best interest to make sure that they group up as quickly as possible. As for the group on the bottom right, figuring them out was among the harder things I had to do this chapter. You can have 4 units down there, but I eventually decided to just go with 3. And I'll explain that in a little bit. So, the next thing that makes this chapter really annoying is that 3 of the bosses are druids, promoted dark mages. And you can see here, they have long-range staves, because of course they do. That one has berserk, that one has sleep, and the one down the bottom has silence. This was probably the most difficult thing to play around, and it took me many tries to figure out how to play the first 3 turns of this map properly so that my units didn't get berserked or sleeped or whatever and end up just killing themselves or another one of my units. So initially, I had Niime down the bottom right because I discovered that she can actually fairly reliably sleep the druid on the bottom half of the map. She had about a 70% chance of doing that, which isn't that isn't too bad. So I figured if I can sleep that guy on the first turn, I can then keep Niime around, and I can just have other good units down there like Marcus or Lance or Milady, and with Niime for healing, I should be able to survive the onslaught of wyverns and bow knights and all the rest of it. Nomads, sorry, not bow knights. But I quickly discovered, or perhaps quickly remembered, I may or may not have known this at some point in time prior to playing this map, but thrones actually heal all status effects at the start of a turn, apparently. So my plan kind of went to crap as soon as it started, and he immediately woke up and berserked Niime and she died. So from then on, I thought to myself, well, if I can't status stave that dude, he's only got a silence. I may as well just not have any staff units down there and change my game plan from survive to escape. Run up the right side of the map and try to regroup with the rest of my units. This ended up being quite challenging. As you can see there, the path was blocked by some very strong wyvern lords with capped strength, and the wyvern lords had silver lances as well, so they do a lot of damage. Very hard for my units to survive, especially without healing. Luckily, I did manage to figure out a combination of units and spacing that I could use to make sure that they got away just fine, but figuring that out did take a lot of trial and error. Speaking of trial and error, this is the second hardest part of the map. You see here, these promoted nomads can cross water, and they're gonna crit both of my fucking... excuse my French. They're gonna crit both of my axe units. You can see I'm still upset about this map. This map made me really mad, so I apologize for the swearing. But we're all adults here, I think, anyway, so who cares? So those 2 nomads are ridiculously hard to deal with because I kind of can't spare any good units to deal with them, and my axe units are almost worthless combat-wise, especially against these guys who are very fast and have very high dodge. They are not going to get hit very easily at all. The one saving grace I have finally is boars. Boars actually came in clutch this map, and you can see they're on the very left side of the screen. He is just plugging that bridge. No nomads are going to get over that bridge while he still stands, and since they literally cannot damage him with their bows, he's fine, basically. He will live forever. But this right side of the screen was really hard to deal with, because as you can see here, like, my hit rates are just so awful. Ward the God actually managed to hit both of his Brave Axe hits, which really saved me a lot of trouble. If he wasn't able to do that, then I would have been in a bit of a pickle, really. That would have been quite the difficult situation. So that was quite lucky, really. But I didn't have any other options. So on the bottom right here, we're going to continue to have those 3 units make their way up the top. Their job is basically done at this point. Their job was basically just survive the Wyvern Lords, and they have done that. So now they're going to regroup. Wolt actually did really, really well. He was instrumental for taking down those really bulky Wyvern Lords. So I'm proud of my boy Wolt. He's come very far from the Chapter 1 days. And we'll have Milady ferry him back to the rest of us, because he can walk way slower than Milady's Wyvern can fly. And Lance will catch up eventually as well. So with this part of the map pretty much done, that was the most dangerous part of the map. All of that just there was the most dangerous part. At this point, the promoted nomads that could cross the rivers are not close enough to be a problem, and the status staves, or long-range staves, of the enemies are broken, or at least the ones that can reach us right now. So most of the rest of the map is a cakewalk. Those first 3 turns were where most of the strategy was, figuring out where to place my units at the start, what items to give them. At first, like on my first attempt at this map, I didn't bring any restore staves, because I actually didn't notice that the enemy druids had long-range staves. So just learning from my mistakes like that, bringing the staves I need, bringing the items I need, and putting my units where they need to be was pretty much the entire challenge of this map. So you can hear here the music has changed, because this part of the video is extremely sped up, since I was moving and playing very, very slowly, and I figured you probably don't want to listen to the screeching noises of like a super sped up GBA game. It really wasn't that pleasant to listen to, so I just subbed in the lo-fi music that I've put in a video before this one, just so that it doesn't hurt your ears as much. Because yeah, this is going to be a bit slow, and trust me, I have sped up this section of the video as fast as I possibly can. I don't know if I'm just really bad at using Sony Vegas. I probably am just bad at using Sony Vegas, but I couldn't figure out how to get it any faster than it currently is. So trust me, it's as fast as I could manage to get it. But it's still going to be roughly 5 minutes of what we're seeing right now, which is boars plugging a hole. Boars being incredibly useful. I could definitely have sent my stronger units in to deal with these promoted nomad dudes way quicker than I did. But at this point, I was quite frustrated with this chapter already. I had failed the first 3 turns of it so many times, and I just was not willing to risk anything. So I'm moving very, very slowly, very, very safely, and just ensuring that nobody has any chance of death. Most of the length of this part of the map is actually just because of the enemy phase. Boars just ends up tanking like 6 arrows per enemy phase, and it takes forever to slog through. So we're gonna have Marcus and Rutger move in here to take care of these dudes, because Boars doesn't have a javelin anymore. He used it already. He only had 2 uses left on it anyway. So ignoring that, yeah, moving these 2 dudes up, because I know Rutger and Marcus couldn't die in 1 round even if they wanted to. Lance is going to get a super nice crit on this dude and just finish him off. Lance doesn't get any XP anymore, unfortunately, because he is capped, but such is life. That's what happens when you're a good unit. Speaking of capped, Marcus is almost capped. He's at level 19 now. On one of my runs, he managed to get a really solid level up. It was like speed, defense, HP, and luck or something like that. But here we're just going to get HP and one other stat that doesn't really matter. Such is life. Marcus is already pretty good. I don't have any problems with Marcus. So here we can finally start picking off some of these dudes, since Boars is literally just a walking pincushion. He can't retaliate whatsoever unless the enemies land right in front of him, which they do, but only if they have literally no other choice. So it's definitely more productive to pick them off with my other units. I can honestly say this is the map where Boars was the single most useful unit out of any of my other units. He put in the most work here, and finally having him on my team actually paid off a bit. Speaking of having them on my team, it's in this chapter that I've learned the limitations of Niime. Prior to getting her, just using her in normal mode, of my first normal mode run of this game, I was under the impression that Niime was really pretty good. And she is still a good unit, very high magic, good staff rank, but she is incredibly frail. So frail. It's actually astounding how many things she will die in one hit to, and in addition she's not that fast, so pretty much all of the nomads on this chapter can one hit her, or definitely one round her. They might not all be able to one hit her, but they can definitely all one round her because they will all double her. Speaking of Niime, she just got a level up with no stats gained, so well done Niime, you have one more chance to get a level up, and if it's that bad as well, I might have to call you a bad unit. Sorry, that's just how the world is. Speaking of bad units, my Axe brothers there were pretty much nothing but liabilities this chapter. You saw at the very start how they both got crit and almost died, both. The more I play with them, the more I realize that they're even more worthless than Boars is. You know, at least Boars can tank, but these dudes just do nothing. They fold quickly because despite having huge HP, their defense is actually relatively lacking. And they just can't hit anything. Axes were really just nerfed to shit in this game. They have decent might, sure, but that doesn't matter if you're not actually able to hit anyone. And it doesn't help that the skill on both of my axe units is pretty poor as well, so... Enough complaining about them, they both managed to survive. So, you know, I can't fault them for that. But they don't do anything. Roy actually capped out here. I was trying to make Roy cap this chapter. So he's level 20. He will promote in, I think, 2 chapters time, or like at the start of the chapter after the next chapter. I don't quite remember, but his promotion is soon. So we capped him in time. And for a capped level 20 unit, his stats are not especially impressive. I must admit, he is quite lackluster, and I do understand why so many people call Roy a bad unit now. In earlier chapters, it always seemed like Roy was just okay. He didn't really have the movement, though, to take advantage of any of his stats or anything like that. But now that he's capped, I can see that, yeah, he really isn't that good at all. I don't actually remember how potent his promotion gains are, so I suppose we'll see how good they make him. But that's for a few chapters time. Right now, we have cleared out most of the trash mobs. There are no reinforcements on this map other than reinforcements that are controlled for. So the gimmick of this chapter is that there are like 6 or 7 huts that have mini-boss-esque enemies in them. And I think there's a random chance of finding the legendary weapon in any of the thrones. But upon Roy seizing any of these gates, or thrones, or whatever you want to call them, if it's the wrong one, you'll immediately get ambushed by 6 enemies, I believe it is, and they all spawn in the same places, so you can deal with them relatively easily, as long as you haven't moved all your units already. But it's definitely something to watch out for. My general strat was kill the boss, put everyone in good positions to deal with the units that flow out, and then just take them down. Which I only ended up needing to do once. Spoiler alert, if you couldn't tell from the length of the video at this point, only one of these is fake, and luckily for me, the one with the Nomad Trooper in it ended up being the actual resting place of the Myrger? The bow definitely didn't get translated properly. I know in Heroes it's the Milagre or something like that. Brave Lyn has it, but in this game it's translated like M-I-U-R-G-R-E, and I don't know how to pronounce it, so we'll just call it the Bow of Winds. Maybe we'll just call it a bow. Who really cares? I don't even know if I'm going to use it. Lilina takes down that boss pretty easy because Lilina is a beast. I love Lilina. She's got like 30 magic at this point. She's crazy. She's so good at killing wyverns, it's actually mad. So moving on here, the video isn't as sped up as the previous section because I figured it might be slightly more interesting to see me take on the bosses rather than just a bunch of trash mobs that no one cares about. So here we'll have Roy capture this one. You can see it's fake. So the enemies come out like that, and you have to deal with them. Luckily, they don't come out like on the enemy phase as ambush spawns, because that would suck. But if you're not prepared for this to happen, it could definitely screw you over. Luckily, I knew it was going to happen, and Boars gets a sick crit there, and actually gets a really good level up out of it too. Honestly, Boars MVP this chapter. Boars MVP. I can't say anything bad about him. He's great. Well done, Boars. Awesome. Another level up for Sue, and it's a great one at that. I feel like Sue's gotten quite a lot of level ups this chapter, actually. Yeah, she's honestly a decent unit. I wasn't a fan when we first got her, but she's pretty good. I've never been a fan of Garret or Ward, but at least Ward got those Brave Axe hits, so that's nice. Saul is actually a pretty disappointing combat unit, but he's probably the most staff botty of my staff bots. My other two healers can actually output decent damage, Lilina especially, but Saul really should just keep a staff in his hands. He's really not good. Lilina could have killed the boss there, but I chose not to make her do it because the hit rate was pretty low, and I didn't want her to get doubled by a sword to the face on the next turn. So instead we just crit the dude twice with Rutger, and that's good enough. You see here I'm moving the rest of my units into place for the reinforcements that are not going to come out. But I actually, before playing this chapter, I wasn't aware that the reinforcements didn't come out. I thought the goal of the chapter was actually just to kill all the bosses. And I was not aware that it was actually just a random chance of, you know, maybe this one has the bow in it. So anyway, the chapter's about to end here. I'll be seizing in like one turn from now and nothing happens in between then, so that's it for now. The next chapter looks like a pain in the ass, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.